what exactly is the buzz about the US? Like, how is the US better than the UK? Because I've heard a lot of people talking about it. Like, you see somebody who just relocated to the UK, for instance, and probably he wants to move somewhere else. He feels, oh, I need better, I deserve better, and then US comes to mind. So why are people always thinking about moving to the US from the UK? Anyway, as you can see, I am back. This background is familiar, right? Yes, I'm back to the UK. I recently visited the US with my husband, and I spent a few weeks in the US. Is it really what it's like? You know, everybody's talking about it. I'm moving to the US. You just hear, you see somebody today, oh, we're in the UK together, and the next minute they've announced to you that we are moving to the US or maybe to Canada. So how exactly is the US better than the UK? It's not the same US that I went to. Anyway, I've come to give my honest opinion. Is the US actually better, or is the UK still the best? If you're team UK or you're team US, please let me know in the comment section. So guys, this is my honest opinion about living in the US as a migrant. I spoke to lots of people as well, people that basically moved from the UK to the US, and people also that moved directly to the US. And guys, see, firstly, US has lots of opportunities. Remember, the US is way bigger than the UK. The US has 50 states, right? And it's so big. When we were in Houston, Texas, we spent most of our time on the road just trying to visit somebody. The person tells you, I'm in the same Houston as you are, sends his address, and you discover that you are on the road for over 1 hour going to visit somebody in the same state, right? Unlike the UK, where from my city to Manchester is less than 1 hour. You're in another city. You know, if you're 2 hours on the road, oh, you are way in another city, right? So it's easy. From my place to London is less than 4 hours, or even about 3 hours, right? So the UK is that small. The US is so big that people in the US take flight from one state to the other to go on holiday in the same US. You know how people fly from, like we flew from the UK to the US on holiday? People in the US also go on holiday in the US. It is that big, right? So there are lots of opportunities and there is more money. So if you're after money, if you feel like, oh, where I am, I deserve better pay, I deserve better remuneration for my job and something like that, then you might want to consider the US, because yes, the money is way higher. You discover that if you speak to your colleagues in the US that are doing the same thing that you do, you will see that their money or their pay is way higher than yours. I remember speaking to a nurse in the US, and she mentioned to me that during COVID time, as an agency nurse, they were taking $11,000 home every 2 weeks. You can imagine that. That's $22,000 in a month, and this is somebody's annual salary in the UK. So that's to show you, that's to give you an idea of how, you know, how much opportunities there are in the US. And I saw lots of people with lots of businesses, right? A lot of people, lots of Nigerians, a lot of migrants in the US owns lots of businesses and they're doing well. So what I discovered that is easier to climb higher in the US in your career, and even as a business person is easier. UK comes with lots of restrictions. I remember one business we're trying to set up at some points. Oh my God, it almost frustrated us to the point that we nearly gave up, right? It is just like that in the UK. And I've also spoken to, you know, some people that I know as well. They have tried setting up businesses in the UK. It is not that easy, but I think it is way easier in the US to just set up a business and do so well. There are some Nigerians, let me talk about Nigerians now. There are some Nigerians in the US, guys, that are doing well. When I mean well, I mean well. They are wealthy living in the US. They are wealthy Nigerians. There are people doing well in the UK, but not as much as the US. Don't say I didn't tell you. And then because it's very big, there are lots of people there as well. So it's easier to blend in, right? Without feeling like an outsider. You will see lots of people like you, people that speak the same language as you, people that are from where you are. Guys, when I was in Houston, Texas, it seems like Houston has a branch for Nigerians, right? Because I went to a particular church and they were all Nigerians wearing their native attires, and at a point you even forget that you're not in Nigeria. They were all speaking their native dialects. You even see people from your village, like in fact, they even have like a group there, association of people from your place. That's exactly how the US is all or Houston, Texas when you went to. Remember, it depends on the state that you are, right? Because US is very big. Yes, we were in New York City, and this is what I observed in New York City, and then we're also in Houston, Texas and New Jersey, you know, so there are lots of black people, even though they're not necessarily Nigerians, but it's just easier to blend in because there are people like you. You can easily just blend into the system and feel at home. That is how the US is, and that is one thing I love about the US, or the states that we went to in the US. Other states might be different, and I also love the weather. I love the US weather. Is very hot. Okay, talking about Houston, Texas again, it's very hot in Houston, Texas. It gives the Nigerian weather. In fact, I feel like it's even hotter than Nigeria, right? So you don't get to cover up all the time, because guys, in the UK weather, that's one thing I really don't like about the UK. The UK weather is depressing, especially during the winter time. It gets dark easily. By 3:30 p.m., 4 p.m., everywhere is already dark. Everybody is indoors. You know, we're all covering up. The cold weather is just gloomy. It's just dull, and oh God, no wonder, you know, they said that UK was rated to be the second most depressing country to live in, because guys, yes, that's how the UK is, but I don't think it's like that in the US. I know that, then again, it's about the states that you live in. Not all states are hot, like Arizona, you know, like Houston, Texas, and those other hot states, Florida and the rest of them. But at least you can easily find some states that are hot. But UK weather is general. When it's cold in London, it's cold in Manchester, it's cold everywhere. So when it comes to weather, I'll pick the US to the UK. I give it to the USA. Their weather is beautiful. Like when it's summer, you know that it's summer, guys. Oh, that's one thing I miss about the US anyway, their weather. Again, guys, I noticed that there's a huge difference between the rich and the poor. It's just easy to distinguish between the rich and the poor in the US, unlike the UK, where it's difficult because the system kind of protects everybody, right? The UK pays benefits to the citizens, and you know, they are very conservative people in the UK, right? So they just want to make sure that everybody's okay, everything is done in order. If you're building a house, they have to approve it, the size of the house. That's why you see that UK houses are really small compared to US houses, right? Anyway, I'm coming to houses, but it's just easy to see. Like when I was in New York City, right, it was really easy. You see rich people driving really big cars, and you see that these cars are very expensive. And then just beside him, you see somebody who is begging, who is homeless, sleeping on the floor, you know, begging alms, trying to survive. It is very obvious. That sight is not so common in the UK. Even though, to be very honest, after we left New York City, that sight wasn't really common, you know, when we went to the other states. But then that class difference is very obvious. Even with the houses, there are big houses, very big houses, mansions in the USA. Like if you want to get a house that has a swimming pool, big houses, you will find it in the US. But you would also see small houses as well in the US, you get. But in the UK, it's not really like that. Most houses in the UK are almost of the same size, and there are a few houses that are big, but even at that, when it comes to US standard, those houses I think are big are actually really small. Because guys, when I entered some houses in the US, I was like, what is this? Like, we're living in cubicles in the UK. What's going on here? US have big houses, beautiful houses, unlike the houses you find in the UK, because I don't even know why. UK people cannot just, there's some rooms you stay in the UK and I'm like, why didn't you just extend this room a little? Like, will your neck fall down if you just, when you were writing the plan or drafting the plan of this house, if you had just extended this house a little, right? Because you see the garden, some of the gardens are big. Why didn't you just extend the house into the garden? What am I doing in a big garden that is only open for about 4 months in the whole of the year? There are also smaller houses in the USA though. So don't always believe when people tell you that there are only big houses in the US. That's not true. Okay, so yes, UK just has a way of protecting people of the lower class, you know, with all their benefits and everything. They have a way to just, you know, carry everybody along. So I think British citizens enjoy more benefits than US citizens. Again, right, the UK feels and is safer than the US. Guys, trust me, there is nothing like peace of mind. We enjoy absolute peace and tranquility in the UK. You guys, see, I wouldn't trade that for anything, because when we were in the US, it just felt so chaotic. It felt like, I don't know, maybe because of the media or the things that we have heard, it just felt unsafe. You know, when you're outside, you're just trying to do whatever you have to do and go back inside, you know. I even remember this scenario where we went to this restaurant to eat with my cousin, and then we just stepped out of the table. I stepped out, and then she called and said, "Why are you leaving your bag here?" I'm like, "I'm coming back now." She's like, "People think you are in the UK. This is US. Anywhere you're going to go with your bag, go with your phone." Because somebody can just come in here and snatch your bag without you even noticing. And before you notice, the person is gone, right? So, and I'm like, okay, thank God for the UK. Yes, don't get me wrong. There is crime in the UK. There's crime everywhere. But I think it's more in the US. And the UK just feels safe. It feels safer. Now, it also depends on the state, because if you are in London, you might not feel as safe as somebody who is living in this part of the UK where we are living, right? So it also depends on the state, right? I feel like this is it. Like, this is what you get in most states in the US. Please let me know if I'm wrong in the comment section, okay? Because tell me why somebody will be so scared of going to Walmart. Now I understand why most of the doors in the UK are not built with locks, except the toilets, right? And maybe the outdoor and the front door. But for the rooms, most of the UK doors that I've seen do not have locks. I don't know why. I've heard people talk about how they forgot to lock their doors, how they leave their things outside and go back and it's safe. Even their cars, they forget to lock it and everything is still safe and all of that, right? So this also goes a long way to tell you that you should do a lot of research before you settle anywhere, whether in the UK or in the US, because trust me, safety matters, and I will pick safety. I will pick safety over every other thing. You see that peace that we're enjoying in the UK, especially in the past where I'm living. See, guys, I will choose safety first, right? Because tell me why you just be so scared. We've heard of the gun violence and everything. See, it's not like there were people carrying guns everywhere. I didn't even see anyone or even notice any scenario, anything like that throughout my stay in the US. Trust me, right? And I also know people who say they've lived in the US for a very long time and they haven't for one day experienced any of those violence and all of that, right? But then, guys, with the way the media have portrayed this news, the whole violence, gun, everything, I just think, see, leave my UK for me, right? I am team UK. Again, when it comes to cost of living, I feel like it is the same for the UK and the US. This is what I think. I went shopping, I bought clothes and some things. I went grocery shopping with my cousin and all of that. And I didn't notice any difference. The only thing I noticed is that there are more varieties in the US than in the UK, right? Like, you have more options. Yes, there are some things that are cheaper in the US and there are some things that are more expensive in the US. So in general, I think it is the same. But people in the US, because they have more money to spend, right? I was speaking with somebody who just moved from the UK to the US, and I'm like, what do you think? How is the US? And she says, oh, anything you can think of times 10, right? That was her words. The US is better times 10. Is it money? Is it because of childcare? Is it this? Anything? But then I tried to argue, but I just left it, because when somebody has formed an opinion, there's nothing you might say that might change the person's mind. But I don't think it's in everything that the US is better. Yes, like I said earlier, for money, for opportunities, the US is better. And if that is your priority, then you might want to consider the US, right? But for cost of living, for bills we pay, basically the same thing. But guess what? Those in the US spend more money, especially when it comes to healthcare. Guys, healthcare in the US is expensive. They try to tell you that we earn more money, we earn so much money, and we pay for it without even knowing. You guys, we are enjoying a lot in the UK, okay? Yes, it comes with its own, advantage, because everything that has an advantage has a disadvantage, right? For the US, they pay more money and healthcare is easily accessible. You can just walk into any hospital and see a doctor. But for us here, we have to call the GP. Yes, it's not entirely free. We pay IHS fees, we pay our taxes and all, but see, You cannot compare it with what these guys are paying in the US. People literally go bankrupt in the US, because of how much they have to pay for healthcare. It is more expensive in the US, but it is more accessible. Like us in the UK, it is cheaper for us compared to what our friends in the US spend. But before you will see a doctor, you will call your GP, you book an appointment. Recently I went to A&E and I spent all day. I went in the morning and I was there till 6 a.m. the next day. I'm not even joking. A long queue, the wait time. You call to see a dentist, they tell you, oh, you have to wait till next day. You want to see a pediatrician, they tell you have to be on the queue. So I think that might not really happen in the US because, of course, you're paying for your healthcare, so you can easily just go in and say, doctor. Those in the US might not relate to this thing I'm saying, but I think this is the price we're paying. But guys, I'll still choose it. See guys, if UK NHS have come through for you before, just like they have for me, you would appreciate the UK healthcare. Trust me guys, it's unbeatable. I could give you guys, different scenarios of how the NHS have come through for me, for people around me, and even when we tell our friends, our colleagues, our siblings in the other countries, they agree to this thing that yes, actually, the NHS is actually good. The healthcare system in the UK can be good sometimes, even though it has a downside as well, right? It just depends on what is more important to you, right? So if you're considering, is it the UK or the US, you should just weigh your options so that you will know if you want big things, big houses, big cars, to ride on big roads, to, live extravagant life, spend money, get more money. See, there is money. There is more money in the US, obviously. So if you want all of that, then just move to the US, okay? But if you just want a conservative life, a peaceful lifestyle, you just want to enjoy yourself with the little you're making in the UK, you have a little business that's not doing so badly in the UK, you're just managing yourself, you with your family doing okay, just living a good life, a comfortable life. You can afford one holiday in a year, The UK is not that bad, trust me. But see guys, you know why I also like the UK? There's this community that I really, even though those in the US are enjoying it, but for me, I feel like there's this togetherness in the UK more, because it's quite a small country, I can easily invite a friend or my sibling that lives in London for my event, and the person will come and go back the next day, I can easily see anybody I want to see. I can just go to Birmingham, go to Manchester, go to, Kent and come back, go for a friend's event, see anybody and come back. But I don't think it's like that in the US, because US is so big. Like, somebody can tell you, oh, I live in Atlanta, and you're living in Houston, Texas. Before you guys will see, you would fly to go and see your friend or your sibling. That's what I think. For those in the US, how do you even cope with your friends and family that live in a different state as you? How do you guys see? But in general, right, just to conclude, there are more opportunities in the US. There are varieties, even for children. So when it comes to things like that, US has a lot more to offer than the UK, right? But generally, I would say that every country is unique in its own way. So it just depends on what you want from life and what your priorities are. Make sure you do your research before you go. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye-bye.